Hi guys, John here with Lincoln Industrial, bringing you the latest tips and troubleshooting advice for our products. In today's video, we're going to show you the proper procedure to load a grease cartridge and prime a grease gun. Whether you have a lever or pistol grip manual gun, pneumatic or power lube or electronic grease gun, the priming process is the same for them all. If this is the first time using your gun, begin by unthreading the grease tube assembly from the head of the grease gun. Next, pull down on the T-handle and using the notch in the rod, lock it into the tube end cap. Tube is now ready to accept the cartridge. Before inserting the cartridge, inspect for any dents or crushed ends. Do not use tubes if these issues are found, as they may cause the follower assembly to hang up in the tube or cause lubricant bypass behind the follower. Also be sure to follow the instructions on the tubes. Many of the reputable manufacturers will designate which end of the cartridge should be inserted into the grease gun tube assembly first. Once the cartridge is seated in the tube, pull the tab or remove the male plug from the exposed end and thread the tube assembly back onto the head of the gun. When the tube assembly is fully tightened, release the plunger rod from the end cap notch. This allows the spring to push up on the follower assembly and apply pressure on the grease in the cartridge. At this point, there will be a decent sized air pocket between the cartridge and gun head inlet we need to remove, and this can be accomplished in two ways. First method uses the installed filler bleeder valve or vent valves located on the heads of many of our grease guns. Open the ports a few turns and allow the air to vent until grease expels from the threads or vent port. After grease begins to flow from the ports, tighten the valves back up and cycle the gun. Second method was meant mainly for grease guns without vents, but does apply as an alternate priming method for all our grease guns. Unthread the grease tube assembly 1 to 2 turns to allow the air pocket to escape through the threads between the grease gun head and tube assembly. You may expedite either process by locking the plunger rod into the follower assembly so more pressure may be applied to the grease in order to force the air out the vent or tube assembly threads. Stop when you see either grease expel from the threads or vent, or the rod has no more forward movement. Once complete, tighten the tube to the head or close the vent and cycle the gun. With the air bled and grease flowing correctly from the coupler, apply a small amount of pressure to the plunger rod and twist until the rod freely slides into the grease tube assembly. With the rod in place and out of the way, the gun is ready for use. A few points to consider concerning the lubricant when operating your grease gun. If the lubricant you are using is very tacky or thick, this process may take a little longer. This is especially true if working in a cold environment. Some greases tend to flow slower than normal and possibly lead to loss of prime. In this case, cycle your gun slowly, allowing for full strokes of the handle for manual units. Reduce your air pressure down if using a pneumatic gun, or set electronic power lubers to the low setting, and allow a little more time for the grease to enter the chamber. If necessary, pre-pack the gun head to leave as little of an air pocket as possible. Then follow the final priming steps to reprime your gun, and you'll be ready to go.
We offer long-lasting grease guns that are built for heavy-duty service and a lifetime of performance. Our grease guns are manufactured from the highest grade of materials to rigid quality standards. Designed with the user in mind, there are many unique features that are incorporated into our grease guns, which make the work easier and faster. Each grease gun goes through several quality control checks to ensure the highest quality level, thus assuring they meet the demanding requirements that you have. So let's go over a few of the different types of grease guns. The first one I want to show you is our model LX1112. This is a lever style grease gun that is typically found in the market. Ours can go up to 10,000 psi and also has a bleeder valve that helps you purge the air when you're loading a new grease cartridge. Also, there's a rigid pipe and a nice protective cap on the coupler so there's no dirt and debris that gets into it. The next style of grease gun we're going to show you is our model LX1152. As you can see, it's a convenient one-handed operation. There's also vinyl grips that ensure a safe and secure grip when you're using the product. It also comes with a filler nipple and a bleeder valve, a nice 18-inch hose, and a coupler and the protective cap. Next up, we have a pistol grip gun that is similar to the last one, but a little different in a few unique features. This one is a dual leverage model that has a flick of the switch. You can switch between high pressure and high volume. The high pressure lets you burst through a clogged grease fitting, and the high volume lets you grease a lot of fittings in one go. It also has a filler nipple and bleeder valve like the previous model, and then also a nice heavy-duty hose and the LX1401 heavy-duty coupler. And this model is the LX1153. Next up, let's talk about going cordless. This is the LX1175 and LX1176. This is a 12 volt cordless gun that can do up to 7 cartridges per battery charge. The LX1175 comes with 1 battery and the 1176 comes with 2 batteries. Both of them come with the nice hose, the coupler, and the cap. This is a great way to go cordless at a convenient cost. It also comes in a slimline carrying case that protects the gun and is ready for use the next time you pick it up. Next up, we have the LX1403 quick release grease coupler. This is a patented design exclusive to LUMAX. It can get up to 15,000 psi and has 4 steel hardened jaws that ensure a secure fit every time you're greasing your fitting. Similar to the LX1403 I just previously showed, this is the LX1403 XL. Has a little bit longer of a nozzle that allows you to reach hard to reach places and is good for things like PTO shafts. It also carries the same specs and patents that the previous model LX1403 has. So this one is for unique applications that could be good for you. Lastly, I want to show you this new magnetic LED light we have. The model is LX1436 and it just won the People's Choice Award for P10 in 2020. It's a very convenient light that can be attached to any kind of tool, whether it's a grease gun, a screwdriver, a hammer, a spanner, what have you. It can easily attach, and just with the push of a button, you can light up a dark area in seconds.
Hey everybody, Jay at LockNLube here to tell you about the LockNLube Grease Coupler XL. Now for those of you not familiar with our traditional LockNLube grease coupler, the technology is the same. You have a thumb lever that activates a sliding sleeve, which exposes 4 hardened steel jaws. These jaws are going to grab onto your grease fitting, and they're not going to leak, and they're not going to pop off. Now we've got a rubber seal in here that's going to last a long time, up to twice as long as our traditional seal. And the best part is these couplers are rebuildable. As you can see on our display here, both the XL and the regular LockNLube grease coupler come standard with a replacement seal kit. So down the road, if your seal ever does start to leak, you can simply unscrew this unit here, drop the new one in, and your coupler is going to work as good as new. Now the main difference between this and the regular LockNLube grease coupler is the size of the barrel. You'll notice that the barrel on this is about 2 inches longer than the regular LockNLube grease coupler. The reason for this is from feedback from our customers. We heard from folks who are greasing shielded PTO shafts, harvester heads, axles and U-joints that they had a few fittings that were really deep behind shields, down in holes, and hard to get at with our traditional LockNLube grease coupler. So we use the same LockNLube technology, but made the barrel longer so you can get at those deeply recessed fittings. Now let's take a closer look and see how the regular LockNLube grease coupler and the LockNLube XL work inside a recessed fitting. Alright, so here we are looking at the LockNLube point of purchase display. We've got a regular Zerk fitting here, and then another one mounted inside this metal tube. It's an inch from the bottom of that grease fitting to the top of this tube. Let's see how the regular LockNLube grease coupler engages. So you push down on the thumb lever to expose those jaws, and once it locks onto that grease fitting, it's not going to pop off, it's not going to leak, and even though you can't see the fitting, you can be confident that the grease is going in, not on your machine. Now I mentioned that we're about an inch deep, and you can see that you're already approaching the end of the usable distance on that barrel. Now if the hole in the shield or this tube were a little bit wider, you could get all the way back to here, but if it's a narrow or a tight spot, this is pretty close to the limit of what you can do. Let's compare that to the LockNLube XL. With the LockNLube XL, you push down the thumb lever just like our regular coupler to expose those jaws and engage with your grease fitting. Now that you're locked on, you can see that even an inch deep, you've got a lot of room left to work with, and you can hit even those grease fittings that are the most deeply recessed. Alright, now on to the fun part. Let's get this thing up to pressure and see how it works. Alright, now let's see what happens when we get our LockNLube grease coupler XL up to pressure and then easily release it just using the thumb lever. We've got our coupler here attached to our 20 volt grease gun. Got my safety glasses on, And we've even got our super high-tech grease blocking cardboard box here in case we get some grease splattering out when we release it. So I'll simply push down the thumb lever, connect to our Zerk fitting here that's connected to our pressure gauge, and get this up to pressure. Now we are at about 8,000 psi, which is the most that this grease gun is going to put out. You can see that the hose is stiff, full of grease. The grease coupler is locked on. It's not popping off. But by simply pushing down the thumb lever, we're able to remove the coupler without any problem. Even if this grease fitting had been deeply recessed, no problem to get that coupler off and move on to the next fitting.